All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to play medical detective. Our case is a real puzzle where the clues are literally written on the human body itself, and they all lead back to one tiny but incredibly powerful source. Okay, so let's just dive right into this puzzle. What could possibly connect these things? Chronic headaches, vision that's getting worse, hands that have actually grown too big for their rings. I mean, at first glance, these seem totally unrelated, don't they? A headache could be anything, vision problems happen as you age, and your hand's getting bigger. That's just odd. But what if they're all pieces of the exact same puzzle? Because here's the thing, they aren't isolated issues. When you start to see them all pop up together in one person, they stop being just a list of random complaints. They start to form a very clear pattern, a set of clues pointing to a single systemic problem happening deep inside the body. And just look at how diverse these clues are. We're talking neurological issues like headaches and vision loss, but then you have these dramatic physical changes to the hands and feet. And on top of all that, deep hormonal problems that affect men and women in completely different ways. Every single one of these is a critical piece of evidence. So where are all these clues pointing? To find the source, we've got to go to the body's command center. It's a tiny but unbelievably powerful structure located right at the base of the brain. And here it is. Meet the pituitary gland. It might not be any bigger than a pea, but you should think of it as the body's master conductor. It's directing this huge orchestra of hormones that control pretty much everything: growth, metabolism, reproduction, you name it. And so, as you can imagine, when something goes wrong here, the effects are felt absolutely everywhere. Okay, so we found the scene of the crime. Now it's time to identify the actual culprit. The disruption happening in this master control center is almost always caused by one thing: an uninvited guest, a tumor. We're talking about something called a pituitary adenoma. Now, the key word you need to hear is benign, which means it's not cancerous. But, and this is so important, benign does not mean harmless. Not even close. This rogue growth of cells can wreak absolute havoc, either because of its sheer size or because it starts producing a flood of hormones. And this is where we connect right back to our first clues, because with these tumors, size is everything. They're generally classified as either microadenomas, which are tiny, less than a centimeter, or macroadenomas, which are larger. And believe me, that size difference completely changes the story. A macroadenoma, which is what doctors find in about 75% of patients at diagnosis, is big enough to physically press on its neighbors in the brain. This is what's known as the mass effect. That pressure is exactly what causes those intense headaches. And when it pushes up against the optic nerves, which are right nearby, it creates very specific vision problems. Classically, a type of tunnel vision. But that physical pressure is only one half of the story. The other, and maybe more insidious problem, happens when the adenoma isn't just taking up space, it's actively producing and releasing massive amounts of a specific hormone. And this leads us to a condition called acromegaly. It's what happens when one of these pituitary adenomas just starts pumping out way too much growth hormone. Now, in an adult, your bones have already finished growing longer, so all that extra hormone has nowhere to go, but out. It starts making things grow wider and thicker. And the link here is just incredibly direct. I mean, look at this. In over 95% of cases, a diagnosis of acromegaly points straight back to one single cause: a growth hormone secreting adenoma. The connection is pretty much undeniable. So how can doctors be so sure? Well, this part is actually really clever. Trying to measure growth hormone directly is tricky because its levels spike and fall all day long. It's kind of like trying to judge a highway's traffic by just looking for 1 second. So instead, they measure something called IGF-1. The liver produces it in response to growth hormone, and its levels stay stable, giving a really clear 24-hour traffic report. It's the perfect diagnostic tool. And this hormonal flood is what explains all our other initial clues. The acral enlargement, that's the growing hands and feet. Then there are the coarsening facial features, the thickened skin that's literally hard to puncture with a needle, and even a deepening voice as the soft tissues and the larynx start to grow. And the damage doesn't stop with just physical appearance. This systemic growth leads to other really serious, debilitating health problems. All that new tissue in the wrist, that causes carpal tunnel syndrome in nearly 2/3 of patients. The enlargement of the tongue and airway leads to dangerous sleep apnea in about half of them. and the hormone's effect on metabolism can even trigger diabetes.
But here's a crucial point. Not all of the damage comes from too much growth hormone. Sometimes the problem isn't what the tumor is producing, but what it's preventing the body from producing.
In fact, about a third of all pituitary adenomas are what we call non-functioning. They don't secrete any hormones themselves. Instead, as they grow bigger and bigger, they cause problems simply by compressing and damaging the healthy parts of the pituitary gland around them. This compression can cause a deficiency of other critical hormones, a condition called hypopituitarism, and that affects everything from your energy levels to your reproductive health. The tumor can also mess with the gland's wiring, leading to an excess of the hormone prolactin, or it can even disrupt the body's entire water balance, causing this profound, unquenchable thirst. It's just total hormonal chaos.
So our puzzle is solved. A single, tiny, pea-sized gland going rogue can fundamentally change a person's entire life and appearance. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other microscopic managers are silently running our lives, perfectly balancing the complex machinery inside us every single moment of every day?